What happens when a blue-collar electrician and a wealthy designer fall in love in a world that's determined to tear them apart? Julian Ross never expected a simple repair job would lead to a connection that would challenge every rule, every bias, and every part of his past. But when whispers turn into headlines and judgment knocks on their door, will love be enough to hold them steady, or will it all come crashing down? Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Soulframe Stories for more powerful tales that stay with you long after they end. "You're not like other electricians," Elena said, her voice echoing faintly in the sunlit hall. Julian Ross didn't look up right away. He was crouched beside the breaker panel in the foyer, the faint smell of burned wiring lingering in the air. His hands worked methodically, guiding a replacement line through the conduit as if the chaos behind the drywall didn't faze him. It didn't. What fazed him was her voice, calm, curious, and clear. He finally turned, sweat clinging to his brow, and met her gaze. She stood barefoot at the top of the staircase, arms folded across a loose cream sweater, the hem brushing the tops of her thighs like it had been made for comfort, not style, though somehow it managed both. Her expression was unreadable, but not cold. "I've seen a lot of people fix things," she said. "You don't just fix, you listen to what's broken." Julian blinked, unsure whether it was a compliment or a trap. "Listening's part of the job," he replied, standing slowly, brushing off his jeans. "Electricity tells you things. You just have to know what to listen for." That made her smile. Just barely. "Most people just flip a switch and call it magic." "I don't do magic," Julian said, picking up his multimeter. "Just wires and patience." The lights above them, which had flickered off and on all morning, now held steady, a clean, warm glow that poured into the hallway like reassurance. Elena tilted her head. "How bad was it?" "Old wiring, poor grounding. I added a stabilizer, rerouted 2 junctions." He glanced at her, then back at his kit. "Should hold for a while." "You always explain things like that?" "Only when someone asks." She walked down the stairs, steps nearly silent against the oak treads, then stopped a few feet away. "I like that," she said. "Clarity. It's rare in my world." Julian gave a tight smile, kneeling again to pack up his tools. "In mine, it's how you keep from burning the house down." They stood in that calm, half-lit hallway a moment longer, the quiet pulsing between them, not awkward, but full, like a room freshly painted, waiting for furniture. Then she asked, "You have time for lunch?" He froze, tool bag in hand. "Lunch? There's a place down the block, real sandwiches, brisket that bites back." Julian hesitated. He'd learned to keep lines clear. No lunches with clients. No exceptions. Especially not when the house had art on every wall and a garage that could fit 3 of his pickup. But she wasn't pushing, just standing there with the same calm tone she'd used to describe him. Observant, undemanding. He exhaled. "I appreciate it, but I've got another job in an hour." It wasn't a lie. But it wasn't fully true either. Elena didn't argue, just nodded and offered her hand. "Thanks for the fix, Julian." He took it. Her grip was firm, steady, not what he'd expected from someone who looked like she owned a perfume brand or curated museum lighting. It was the kind of handshake that said she saw him not just as a name on an invoice. As he walked to the door, he felt her watching him, not in a flirtatious way, not even curious anymore. Just present, like she was cataloging something important. He stepped outside into the thick Carolina heat, the air heavy with pollen and hum. Back in his truck, the engine coughed to life. He pulled away slowly, glancing once in the rear-view mirror, then catching himself. "Don't look back," he told himself. "You're not built for back." And yet, when he pulled into the next driveway, paint peeling, porch half collapsed, he glanced at his phone to log the job. A new message blinked on the screen. "This is Elena, in case you change your mind." He didn't open it. Not right away, but he didn't delete it either. 3 days passed before Julian replied. He'd read the message a dozen times, maybe more, thumb hovering over the keyboard, retreating every time. He wasn't avoiding her, at least that's what he told himself. He was thinking, or calculating, or maybe just afraid. The idea of stepping into a world that didn't look like his, that whispered when he wasn't looking, was the kind of risk he'd been taught to walk around, not through. Then her second message came. "Brisket still bites back. Tomorrow at noon, I'll drive." No question mark, no pressure. Just presence. Just her. Julian read it while standing in the supply aisle at Booker's Hardware, the hum of fluorescent lights droning above and the scent of machine oil thick in the air. He didn't think, didn't weigh the angles. He just typed back, "Okay, drop a pin." Saturday showed up faster than expected. He stood in front of the shop where he picked up cable ties and outlets, dressed in a clean button-up and jeans. Simple, but not careless. His palms itched, not from heat, but nerves. At 12:02, a silver SUV rolled into the lot. Elena stepped out, barefoot again, of course, this time in a flowy rust-colored dress that caught the wind and flared like she belonged in a movie set somewhere between memory and dream. Her hair was up, messy in a way that was deliberate. Julian raised an eyebrow. "You always show up without shoes?" She grinned. "Only when I want to remind myself to stay grounded." They didn't talk much on the drive. She cracked the window and let the wind do most of the work. The city thinned behind them. Brick shops, traffic lights, sidewalks gave way to trees and pastures. He didn't ask where they were going, and she didn't explain. Eventually, she turned onto a gravel road that curved into a grove of towering pines. At the end was a clearing, a picnic table beneath a moss-covered oak, and just beyond, a narrow river threading through tall grass. Julian stepped out slowly, scanning the place like it might surprise him with a bear trap. Elena, meanwhile, grabbed a brown paper bag from the back seat and started toward the table. He followed. They sat in silence for a while, unwrapping sandwiches. Brisket with tangy slaw, pickles, toasted rye. It was better than she promised. Halfway through her sandwich, Elena spoke. "Do you think I'm weird?" Julian blinked. "That's your opener. I mean, I asked a stranger to lunch and dragged him to the woods barefoot. That's not standard." He chewed thoughtfully, swallowed. "You're not weird. You're just unexpected." Her lips twitched. "Is that a compliment?" "It is if you've spent most of your life being ignored." She didn't answer right away. Then softly, "I don't ignore people." I noticed. The breeze carried the sound of water slipping over rocks. A heron landed somewhere upriver. The silence between them shifted, less guarded, more like a page waiting to be filled. "My grandmother used to bring me here," Elena said, laying her sandwich down. "She said the river could wash off whatever the world tried to stick on you." Julian nodded, watching the current dance like silver threads across stone. "Smart woman. She raised me more than my parents did." He didn't ask for more, just let it land. A few minutes later, she leaned back, eyes closed to the sky. "You know what I like about you? I'm cheap labor." She snorted. "No, you don't ask about my house, or my car, or what I do for a living. You're not impressed." Julian looked at her then, steady. "I was taught not to stare at what doesn't belong to me." She opened her eyes. "And what if it does?" He didn't answer, but her question cracked something, a small shift in the structure he'd built to stay safe. As if for the first time, the blueprint wasn't just his, it was shared, and still unfolding. Julian didn't go home right after the picnic. He drove for hours with no real direction, past the diner where his mom used to pour coffee for long-haul truckers, past the gas station where he fixed his first car at 16, past the empty church lot where he once watched the 4th of July fireworks alone. The city looked softer in the afternoon light, blurred by thought and dust on his windshield. But his mind wasn't on the road. It was still by the river, sitting across from a woman who asked honest questions and didn't flinch at honest answers. The next morning, he woke to a new message from Elena. A photo of a sandwich, drawn in crayon, childlike and ridiculous, with the caption, "Visual inspiration. Get it right next time." He chuckled into his coffee. It felt light and rare, but the diner near his place, he heard it. Two men in the booth behind him, voices not even trying to stay low. "Isn't that the guy with the Carter girl? Saw them on her story." "Yeah, looks like she picked up a pet project." Julian didn't turn around. He didn't have to. The words landed hard and familiar, less like insults and more like reminders. The invisible walls were still there, even if he'd stopped pretending not to see them. He spent the week burying himself in work. Panels, breakers, outlet boxes. He rewired half a duplex in one day just to quiet the echo of that laugh. But it wasn't enough. Not when a client suddenly pulled out of a scheduled job with no reason beyond a vague mention of image concerns. Not when his boss asked, "Julian, you do something I should know about? Someone posted a photo online." Julian shook his head. "I haven't done anything but the work." but the conversation left him raw. He sat up that night on the edge of his bed, phone in hand, staring at Elena's contact. He wanted to tell her about the diner, the whispers, the client. But he didn't. Maybe because some small part of him was afraid she'd agree with them. Or worse, feel guilty. Wednesday evening, Elena called him first. "You free?" she asked. He hesitated. "Define free." "I'm sitting on my porch with 2 milkshakes. One's melting." He smiled despite himself. "You bought 2 on purpose, didn't you?" No comment. "Come over." 15 minutes later, he was there. She sat cross-legged on the front steps, hoodie sleeves pushed to her elbows, chocolate milkshake in hand. She passed the other to him. "Peanut butter," she said. "You look like a peanut butter guy." She was right. They drank in silence, listening to the wind skim across the trees. Then she shifted. "Did someone say something to you?" Julian's fingers tightened around the cup. "Yeah, because something's changed," she said. "You're here, but something's pulling back." He exhaled, slow. "A couple of guys at the diner called me your project." Elena shut her eyes. "I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize for what people say. I do when they say it because of me." He finally looked at her. "It's not your fault I don't fit into their world. But you fit in mine," she said, eyes sharp, voice calm. "And that's the only one I care about." Julian nodded, slowly. "I lost a client over it. Simon's estate. Said it was a reputation issue." Her shoulders stiffened. "What? It's fine," he cut in. I need a minute. From the noise." Elena looked at him, searching for anger or blame, but only found exhaustion. "Okay," she said softly. "If that's what you need." Julian stood. "It's not forever." "I know." She reached out then, placed her hand on his chest. "You're not a project, Julian Ross." "I know," he said. But as he walked away, her porch light stayed on longer than usual, and his doubt walked beside him the whole way home. Rain draped the city like a veil on Thursday, turning everything into shades of silver and slate. Julian sat in his truck, parked outside his apartment, engine off, windshield fogged at the corners. He hadn't moved in 20 minutes. 5 days had passed since he asked Elena for space. 4 nights of half sleep, 3 missed calls, and one growing ache that settled behind his ribs like something he couldn't name. The silence hadn't given him peace. It had only sharpened what he already knew. He missed her. Not in the casual way people miss warmth or habit, but in the quiet, aching way someone misses clarity. Missed the way she looked at him like she didn't need him to impress, just to be. By the time he pulled up to her house, he half expected it to look different, colder somehow. But the porch light still glowed soft. The wind chimes still hummed. He stood on the steps, hesitated, and then knocked. When the door opened, Elena was in a hoodie. His hoodie, he realized, paint smudged on her wrist, eyes tired but not surprised. "I was in the area," he said, sheepish. She raised an eyebrow. "You came from downtown. That's not the area." He shrugged. "Fine, I lied. I wasn't." She stepped back, held the door, then stopped standing in the rain. Inside, the scent of acrylic and coffee mixed with something warmer, like cinnamon or memory. A half-finished canvas leaned against the far wall, a storm in blues and black like the sea mid-scream. Julian paused in front of it. "Yours?" he asked. "Therapy," she replied, walking to the window. He studied it, erratic strokes, overlapping shades, unfiltered. "You ever plan to show them?" She shook her head. "They're not for anyone but me." Julian sat across from her on the floor, knees drawn up like hers. "When I was 14, my guidance counselor told me college would probably frustrate me. That I'd be good with my hands." She laughed. It wasn't joyful, just real. "A teacher once told me not to waste my talent on urban angst, whatever that meant." They sat in the stillness that followed, not looking at each other but knowing they were no longer alone in the room. Then he said, "I didn't come here to dredge up the past." "Then why?" she asked softly. "Because I don't want to be the guy who disappears when things get hard. And I realized, this thing between us, it's not noise. It's real. It's rare. And it scares the hell out of me." Elena didn't flinch. "Same." She rose slowly, crossed the room, pulled a slim folder from the shelf, and handed it to him. Inside were printed screenshots, comments, reposts, blurred photos of them at the river, outside her house, under the oak tree. Some were mocking, others hateful, all invasive. "I didn't show you before," she said, "because you were already carrying enough." Julian's jaw clenched. "How long's it been going on?" "Since the picnic. Someone recognized you. The rest spiraled. You should have told me. I didn't want to scare you off. He looked up. You think I scare easy? You asked for space. Julian exhaled heavy. I thought it would protect us, but all it did was remind me that there's no safe distance. Not from this. Not from them. No, she said, sitting beside him, but there is strength in being close. He looked at her. I'm here, and I'm done hiding. She reached for his hand. I can't promise it'll get easier. I don't want easier, he said. I want honest. I want us. Then let's start now. They sat there, shoulder to shoulder, with the rain still tapping gently on the glass, and for the first time in weeks the storm outside felt smaller than the stillness they built inside. 2 months passed, not like a blur, but like a slow unraveling of something real. Sunday mornings became ritual. Julian brought breakfast from the diner around the corner, still warm in wax paper. Elena brewed coffee in a French press she claimed made it taste alive. They'd sit on the window bench in her studio, knees touching, the sun stretching long across the hardwood. No performances. No defenses. Just two people who had learned the shape of silence and decided to make peace with it. The world outside hadn't softened. Some whispers lingered, loud in their subtlety, but neither of them listened anymore. They were busy building something. Something with walls that didn't need to be high, only honest. One Sunday, toast still on the plate, Elena turned to him with that spark in her eye, the one that always preceded mischief or brilliance, or both. I have an idea, she said. Julian grinned. That sentence usually ends with paint or chaos. This time it ends with both, sort of. She handed him her tablet. On the screen was a sleek, minimal mock-up, Ross Current, a bold logo of a fist holding a copper wire. Beneath it, the tagline, built right, with heart. Julian stared. This is real? I've been working on it. Branding, colors, copy, even picked fonts based on your handwriting. He blinked, speechless. She leaned forward, elbows on knees. You said you wanted to go independent. I wanted to help, not because you need me to fix anything, but because when I see something good, I build with it. Julian swallowed. You don't think it's too soon? Too soon for what? Owning your own story? Something stirred in his chest. Not fear, not pride, just fullness. What do you want from me? He asked, not in suspicion, but with a kind of reverent clarity. Elena met his gaze. I want to build something with you, not for you, not around you, with you. By Friday, the business license was filed. They printed flyers at a local shop, walked neighborhoods hand in hand, taping them to poles, sliding them into mailboxes. Kids waved from stoops. One elderly man squinted at the flyer and said, You, Ross? Julian nodded. The man grunted. Good. My last electrician couldn't tell a fuse from a fig. I'll call you. They laughed all the way down the block. But life doesn't move without friction. The resistance came the following week. A job in South Charlotte. Big house. Pillars. Stone driveway. Julian rang the bell. The woman who answered looked him over like he was a stain on her welcome mat. You're from Ross Current? Yes, ma'am. She narrowed her eyes. You're the one in that article with Miss Carter, aren't you? Julian said nothing. She's a friend of my husband's law firm. Do you really think this little rebellion of yours is sustainable? He smiled tightly. I believe honest work lasts longer than gossip. She let him in, but not without making a phone call on speaker, clearly within earshot. Yes, he's here. I told you she was playing some sort of game. Julian didn't respond. He just fixed the circuit. Clean, professional, quiet. Then left the invoice, thanked her for her time, and walked out without another word. Later that day, he met Elena at the new space she'd rented downtown, a shared studio, half design, half workshop. She was painting when he arrived, brush frozen mid-stroke. He told her everything. Her jaw tensed, but she didn't explode. Instead, she walked to the back wall and flipped over a canvas. Painted this 2 years ago, she said. It was raw, black lines over red, streaked with gold running like veins. Right after my ex told me I wasn't relatable enough for his clients. Julian stepped closer. You're not a phase, she said. You're not some symbol for rebellion. You're not temporary. He touched her wrist gently. And you're not my rescue. You're my partner. They stood there a moment longer, hearts steady. Then Julian said, Let's keep building. And together, they did. One brushstroke, one wire, one truth at a time. Some stories aren't about grand gestures or perfect timing. They're about choosing someone, again and again, even when the world says you shouldn't. Julian and Alina's journey teaches us that love isn't always loud, but it is always intentional. It's not about fixing each other or proving your worth to outsiders. It's about showing up, building something side by side, and standing firm when the ground shakes. In a world that often values appearances over substance, their story reminds us that real connection defies status, silence, and shame. That being seen, not for your resume, your house, or your last name, but for your truth, is one of the most powerful things a person can offer. And when someone sees that truth and still chooses to stay, to fight, to build, that's not weakness, that's strength. Elena didn't love Julian to prove a point. Julian didn't accept her love to escape his roots. They didn't chase validation. They created value. In their defiance, they found clarity. In each other, they found home. So if you've ever been told you're too much or not enough, if you've ever questioned whether love could cross lines drawn in ignorance, remember this. What you build with honesty will always outlast what others try to tear down with fear. Where are you watching this story from? Drop your city or country in the comments. We'd love to know how far this message has traveled. And if this story moves something in you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Soulframe Stories for more narratives that speak to the heart.